Hey guys, it's Yoki here and welcome to the channel for episode 22 of the in-depth track guide series for Assetto Corsa Competizione, where I've been sharing my knowledge on each circuit and giving you juicy tips for each one to help you improve your lap times and better your ability at driving each track. So if this is your first time here and viewing one of these in-depth track guide videos, then please consider subscribing and also taking a look at all the other videos in the playlist. So for episode 22, we're going to be looking at the Indianapolis Road Course in the United States of America. The circuit's length is 2.58 miles, which equates to 4.16 kilometers, has a total of 15 corners, and will require a setup that utilizes medium downforce and medium suspension. Your key overtaking and action areas are going to be turns 1, turn 4, turn 6, turn 8, turn 13, and turn 14. Beginning with the pit entry, you'll find it on the outside of turn 14 on the right hand side of the circuit. You'll need to brake a little bit before entering the pit entry slip road, and then again just before you go into the right hander between the two barriers, and then one final third time as you approach the pit limiter line here, which is situated just before the right hand curve actually ends. When it comes to the pit exit, about 5 to 10 metres after the wall separating the track from the pit lane actually finishes is where the pit exit line is. It's the first of the two lines that you see here on screen. Once you get to this point, disengage the limiter and accelerate out towards the pit exit. You can use plenty of the road on the right hand side of the circuit, and you actually cut the inside of turn 1 here. What you want to do is be roughly merging onto the circuit where you see the white line that extends out perpendicular to the circuit. Now moving on to the actual circuit itself, braking point for turn 1 is going to be at the 400 board that is mounted up here on the fence on the left hand side of the track. You want to be as far over to the wall as you possibly can to try and open up turn 1, braking hard and shifting all the way down into first gear. You want to be apexing here just off the inside curb, as despite this curb being smooth, it is quite large and therefore unsettles cars quite easily. Some cars will be able to take this curb, just take caution with it in both the wet and also dry conditions. Coming off the exit of turn 1, you want to sacrifice it a little bit to try and open up turn 2. You don't actually need to brake coming into this corner, instead just lift off the throttle a little bit and turn the car in. You want to be apexing in and around this point on the inside curb here, which is serrated. The corner, like most around this circuit, doesn't feature any camber whatsoever, but when it comes to the curb usage, you can use this in the dry conditions. However, as you're going to be accelerating coming through the turn, you want to take a little bit of caution with the inside curb in the wet. On the exit of turn 2, you're going to be met with a serrated curb with no additional features or additional runoff. Instead, you'll be met with grass and gravel if you go and dip the wheels beyond the curb itself. And when it comes to this curb's usage, you can use it in the dry conditions, but generally you want to be avoiding it in the wet, as you'll be accelerating coming off the exit of turn 2 and transitioning immediately into the right hander of turn 3. As turn 3 is a very easy right hander that you just need to follow the shortest line through the corner and not really worry about anything else, we're going to come into the braking zone for turn 4. Reference points for the braking zone is quite difficult, but generally I try to reference the end of the curbing on the right hand side. You want to be braking for a fairly short, sharp amount of time before trail braking and turning into the right hander of turn 4, and this is going to be your apex point coming through the corner here on the inside curb. You're not going to have any camber to assist you. This curb is serrated and you can use it in the dry conditions, however in the wet do take caution as you're applying the power throughout the turn. Coming off turn 4, we've once again got a serrated curb on the left hand side of the circuit. Also, once again, there's no additional runoff here on the outside. You'll be met with grass and gravel, so you want to be getting fairly close to this curb to try and open up turn 5 and hugging the curb as much as possible. Use it in the dry conditions, however in the wet you'll be wanting to get close to this curb but generally staying off of it. We then come into the right hander of turn 5. You actually want to be apexing fairly late into this corner, as apexing too early can see yourself running too far to the left hand side of the track on the exit. In the dry conditions you could be taking this corner completely flat out, however in the wet you're probably wanting to be lifting on it, and then this curb here on the inside is serrated and suitable for using in both dry and wet conditions. Immediately coming off of turn 5, we're going to be setting ourselves up for the braking zone for turn 6. You want to be getting yourself to at least the middle of the circuit ready for this braking zone, where you're going to be braking hard and shifting down through the gears, pointing yourself to a very early apex. Make sure you're doing your braking in a straight line and that it brushes the inside curb at this point here. Let the car run a little bit deep through the mid corner, which is going to be your apex. Be patient and let the car roll through the corner and let it coast back towards the inside curb for a final third apex here. You do have the slightest bit of camber to help you through the corner. The curb on the inside is serrated. You can use it in the dry conditions, however I would advise being cautious with it in the wet. Coming out of turn 6, we want to be continuing to hug that inside curb and opening ourselves up for turn 7 as much as possible. Once the curbing on the left hand side ends, we're going to be dabbing the brakes and turning ourselves in for the right hander of turn 7. You want to be hooking up a reasonably early to mid apex on the inside curb here. There's no camber coming through this corner, and it's also a little bit deceptive as it opens up for you on the exit. However, the corner is a little bit longer than you think, so timing the throttle application is going to be key. When it comes to the curb usage on the inside, you should be fine to use it in both the dry and wet conditions. On the exit, there is no curbing whatsoever, which makes timing of the throttle application coming through turn 7 even more crucial. There is, however, an additional bit of runoff here on the outside beyond the white lines, and you can use that to your heart's content. Just be careful though, as you can quickly find yourself running out of room and dipping your wheels onto the grass, which is going to hurt you run down the next straight down towards turn 8. For the braking zone of turn 8, we want to be on the right hand side of the circuit. We're going to be referencing the 200 board up on the fence there next to the second to last red crowd strike sign. It's going to be another heavy braking zone where we're going to be shifting all the way down into first or second gear depending on the car's gear ratios. Once again, like turn 1, there is quite a large smooth curb here on the inside, which will also quite easily unsettle the car if you go and hit it too hard. So generally take caution with it in both the dry and wet conditions. It's also another corner that doesn't feature any camber to help you through the turn. And coming out through the exit, this is the second corner that doesn't feature a curb on the outside. Generally, you don't want to be running out all the way to the grass anyway, as we're going to be pretty much immediately transitioning into the right hander of turn 9, so you want to try and open up that as much as you possibly can. And when we get to the sequence of turns 9 and 10, the two key points for these two corners is using plenty of curb in both the right hander and the left, but also being smooth in your transition between the two. The best way to do this is, as you're steering from one direction to the other, is to either lift off the throttle or use a very small little dab of the brake. It does not need to be much. But these two curbs here on the inside are serrated in both turns 9 and 10. They are quite wide and you can use plenty of them as you come through these two corners as well, and this applies for both the dry and wet conditions. Off the exit of turn 10, we want to try and keep the car as far left as we possibly can to open up turn 11. This is another one where you immediately transition from steering in one direction to then turning right into this right hander. Again, just lift off the throttle, do not brake coming into this corner, and what you want to be doing is cutting as much of the inside curb as you possibly can. Providing you keep your two outside wheels on the white lines, you should be good here, but the curb is completely flat and smooth. You can use it in both the dry and wet conditions, and cutting this heavily will save you an awful lot of time, allow you to get hard on the power coming out through the exit, and gain yourself some good lap time and ground on your competitors. On the exit of the corner, we've got another serrated curb with no additional features. We've just got grass on the outside of the curbing there. You can use this curb in the dry conditions, however avoid it entirely in the wet, as this is a traction zone coming off of the corner. We then come through turn 12, which is pretty much non-existent. It's just a flat out right hander that leads out onto the Indianapolis banking, where we then find ourselves into the braking zone for turn 13. We're going to be braking about 10 meters before we reach this 300 marker board here up on the fence on the left hand side of the circuit. Brake hard and shifting all the way down into first gear, turning the car in, and we want to be apexing just off the inside curb. It's once again another one of those large smooth curbs that do feature twice already around this track. Some cars will allow you to take the curb a little bit, but most cars will become quite heavily unsettled with it, so do take caution and generally try to avoid it in both the dry and wet conditions if possible. And then on the exit we've got a serrated curb with some grass beyond it and no additional features. Generally you don't want to be running all the way to the curb, as we want to be transitioning over to the right hand side of the circuit to open ourselves up for the penultimate turn. But if you do find yourself coming out to this curb, you should be fine to run it in the dry conditions. It's a serrated curb, however, as this is a key traction zone and you're going to be accelerating out through first gear and up into second, you'll be wanting to avoid the curb pretty much entirely in the wet. So as I just mentioned, for this turn 14 we want to be getting ourselves as far right as we possibly can, as quickly as we can. We're going to start braking just as we get to the skid marks on the surface of the track. We're going to be braking and shifting down into first gear, trail braking as we turn in, and we're actually going to be aiming to hook up a very late apex at this point here. There is just the tiniest amount of camber in this corner to help you navigate through it. However, once you get to the apex, you generally want to be straightening the car as quickly as you possibly can, getting hard on the power and starting to accelerate out of the corner. You can use this inside curb in both the dry and also the wet conditions, pretty much no problem. The exit of turn 14, we find ourselves with another serrated curb with no concrete or additional features. It's just grass on the outside here. Once again, it's another curb that you don't actually want to be venturing out to if you possibly can, as you need to be bringing yourself back over to the middle of the circuit to try and open up the next turn. If you do find yourself wandering all the way out here, you've got a serrated curb that is going to meet you. You can use it in the dry conditions, however completely stay off it in the wet as the surface will become slippery. And then we find ourselves into the final corner. Once again, try and open this corner up for yourself as much as you possibly can. It's a very long right-hander. In the dry conditions, this corner should be completely flat out, apexing on the inside curb just here. You'll be absolutely fine to do this in the dry conditions. However, in the wet, as you'll be running this curb, you'll generally want to be taking a little bit caution with the curb itself. Coming through the corner in the wet conditions, you'll probably be needing to lift off the throttle a little bit and just kind of balancing it depending on the amount of grip that the conditions are providing you with. And then on the exit of the final turn, there's no curbing out here whatsoever, and instead there is a quite large concrete wall. So obviously you wanted to be staying clear of this as much as possible. However, you do want to be getting as close to it as you possibly can to open up the run towards the finish line to complete your lap. So now that we've completed the breakdown of each individual corner, let's take a look at piecing it all together at full racing speed. So now that we've completed a fairly competitive lap at Indianapolis Road Course, I just want to finish the episode with a little bit of a disclaimer. Please keep in mind the characteristics of your car, the car setup and the car conditions that you're driving in. Some cars may be able to brake or handle curbs slightly better than others, and whilst I did point out which curbs you can and can't use in both the dry and wet conditions, do take note of these and apply accordingly depending on the conditions that you're racing in, as you may need to adapt slightly. Other than that though, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode and gained some additional knowledge here at Indianapolis Road Course, and of course please let me know if you did, and if you have any questions feel free to fire away in the comment section below as well. Until the next video, have fun, stay safe and take care.